going to have a panel discussion where the topic is documentation release management, the journey, challenges, and solutions. And for this, we have three panelists, Uthra, Swetha, and Gayathri. And let's get started first with their introduction. Uthra is based at Chennai. She is Senior Manager, Technical Documentation at Gigamon. She is a seasoned technical writer, content designer, and thought leader with over 20 years of experience across domains such as networking, network security, finance, and media. Then we have Swetha. She is based at Bengaluru. She is the technical documentation manager at Genesys. She is working in technical content writing for more than 20 years, worked on content delivery for both books and the web. She manages a small remote team working with peers across the globe. Apart from work, she loves Odissi dance and she's part of a professional dance ensemble. Amazing. And then we have our third panelist, Gayathri. She is based at Hyderabad. She is leading the product documentation team at Vitech Systems Asia Private Limited. She holds 11 plus years of experience in technical writing and currently manages the product documentation team at Vitech. She is passionate about embracing challenges to create value-driven documentation. So with this, I welcome all three of you. So thank you so much for joining, Uthra, Gayathri, and Swetha.
Thank you for inviting, Punit.
Thanks, Punit, for this opportunity.
Sure. So let's get started with, I gave some introduction, but I think it will be good for the audience to know about your journey. So if I can get the journey, tell us about your journey, from a tech writer to manager, just a short intro to summarize your journey. So maybe we can get started with Gayathri.
Sure. Thank you, Punit. Hello, everyone. And I really appreciate Punit for giving me this opportunity to be part of this discussion. I'll be very honest here. This is one of the first panel discussion that I'm part of it. And really excited also. And it's been less than a year that I'm associated with TWT group. I got to know about this community from one of my colleagues. So I wasn't aware that such community exists as well. But I really loved it. The discussions. I'm part of the Tech Writers Leaders Group as well. As you see, I hold 11 years of experience into technical writer. I'm one of the fresh manager, I would say, who recently got promoted from a senior technical writer to a manager, and I see a great opportunity for me to become from a manager to a leader. I constantly look for great learnings from the leaders group and as well as the other folks as well. So my journey, I will try to put it in very short, like from a technical writer to manager is where I'm a person who loves challenges. And when I say challenges, I don't keep myself doing the regular work that happens in any place, right? So I try to see how we can improve the process wherever I join. And I've been working as a senior technical writer and technical writer for almost close to 8 plus years. But when I joined Vitech, right, I purposely choose Vitech as one of the best workplace because when I was being interviewed, it was told that Vitech is that place where you don't have a technical writing team existing there. And if you join Vitech, it's going to be you will be the person who will drive the processes here. You will have to create everything from scratch. It could be a technical documentation processes or socializing how tech writers can add and value to the product development. So even bringing and growing the team as well. I played a key role in all of these things. And so I recently, when I started, I'm passionate about, like I said, taking up the challenges, right? So that has been one of my key strengths as well, where I embrace the challenges and identify them and also think about the solutions, how we can convert them into these challenges into possible solutions. So yeah, it has been a great journey offer and looking forward to grow more in this as a leader. Yeah.
Certainly, that's great to know. Nice to know about your pick, that you picked a company for this. So wonderful. Nice thoughts. Thank you. Swetha.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. It's nice to know that, such conferences are happening and, such groups are available and, you're taking the time out of your weekend, right, for this. So thank you for that. And thank you so much, Punit, for putting this together. It was great listening to you, Gayatri. So much energy over there. So I come with around 20 years of experience. I started off as an instructional designer and then moved on to become a technical writer. I have like about 3.5 years experience in instructional designing. Then after that, I moved to technical writing and there's been no looking back because it's like the industry is so wide and there are so many opportunities. There's so much you can do over here, right? I mean, each job is different, each project is different. So it's kept me interested. I get very bored very easily on anything that you give me. I don't stick to things like I pick up the violin, guitar, I do so much and I get so bored, but technical writing has kept me like in the industry. So that speaks a lot about this industry. But of course, I would have loved to stay as an independent contributor, honestly, because everybody goes through that, right? As we mature on the job, we think we're the best. Like, okay, I know, this person doesn't know. So that we all go through that stage at some point in our career. And then we don't see eye to eye with the person we are reporting to. We think that person knows less. All go through those emotions, and it's so. There was a time when I was like an introvert at work. I would just go to work. I'll go for lunch alone, come back, and I actually preferred it because it was like I just go do my work and come back. I'm just talking to the cross-functional teams. But I realized it's not going to work that way, and it was getting difficult for me. I enjoyed the work that I was doing. I was able to put in a lot of focus into my job. I could just do my work and get out of the organization. But what was happening was I saw that you can't retain information. You have to give it away at some point. It's like you keep growing and you have to pull others up with you because I ended up being paired with like very junior writers. Like I would have like 15 years of experience and I'll be paired on a project with a person with 2 to 3 years of experience. And it was very difficult to even, tell the management that, there are quality differences. I went through a lot and finally I saw very good managers and bad managers. I took let's say I thought I should take the best from the good managers that I worked with. And with the challenging managers, I thought I shouldn't behave like this with my team. And I thought, okay, at one point, I become manager. I think I'll do a better job. We think it's very easy to manage. We think, okay, I can do a better job. That's how I became a manager. But trust me, it's been a very difficult journey. But I wouldn't trade this for anything else. I've like grown with my team. I've sobered down a lot with my team, and it's been a very interesting journey. And I think there's no saturation here. You can keep growing as a manager.
Awesome. So responsibility, makes you sober. And that's great to know. I love this point. Like, anyway, you are into Odissi dance and all. So you're so much into music and all. Okay. With everything, after some time you get bored, but with technical documentation, you're not getting bored. And that's something people will love to hear because many who feel technical documentation is, it's kind of boring, no creativity and all. But yeah, we can see there is a lot to do if you want to do.
So that's the thing, if you want to do.
Yeah, if you want to do, certainly. Thank you, Swetha, for joining. Yeah. Uthra, how about you?
Yeah, so it was great listening to Gayathri and Swetha. So, and thanks, Punit, for this opportunity. And I think with TWT, I have a very good connection with TWT. I think I was one of the um, early panelists, right? So if you remember during the 2020, so and I'd a very good association with TWT, and you're doing a great job. TWT is doing a great job. So thanks for that, Punit. So when it comes to my experience, yeah, as you introduced me, I have around 20 years of experience, but I started as a travel from the travel domain. So my domain was completely different. I was a travel executive in a travel agency, and I have 6 years there. And then I thought I need to do a career shift. And that's when I heard about this tech writing. So I thought, why not try for that, right? So so anything that I'm trying to get into, I want to equip myself. So I did some course on tech writing, and that's how it started. My tech writing journey started. So I started off in domains like finance and banking and media. So I learned a lot of things, right? So each domain is very different in nature. It's complex, and so you need to. I would say that tech writers are jack of all trades. So. I started learning things, and I also came to know, I mean, I understood that making the words, right? So the words, simple words, and bringing that clarity in words, that definitely bridges the gap between the people and the technology. That's very important. So that's how I evolved in the technical writing field, and then I moved into networking and network security. That was a very, very complex domain, I would say. And my education was completely different. I was into the travel. I was a BSc travel and tourism graduate, and then getting into the networking side of things was extremely challenging, but it was rewarding also. And I continue to be in this networking field for more than about I would say 14 years now. In my entire technical writing career, 14 years into tech writing, I mean, networking and network security. So that I had initial days were very difficult, right? So you need to understand the terms, terminologies, and those jargons that people use. And I had to undergo a lot of courses, and I also attempted CCNA, but I didn't clear it. I have to admit that. But yeah, but constant learning is always that, and that's very interesting. I would say every release, every feature that comes in, you have to understand the feature a bit more, and then break those complex information into simple terms, and make it understandable for the user. So that was very challenging, and that's what keeps me going even now, I would say. And then the transition happened, like being a tech writer, I started crafting, like I would say I got into a role of information architect. How do you architect the information, right? So that's when that was even more exciting for me. So moved into content strategist role, moved into information architect role. And as Swetha rightly pointed, so you get the opportunity of mentoring people, mentoring juniors, and that's when I realized that I got feedback from peers, I got feedback from the juniors, that they learn a lot from me, and I also start learning a lot from them too. So that's when I thought, like, yeah, it's time, like I need to step into the people manager, and I like doing people manager role as well. So I got this opportunity. So now I'm a documentation manager here. And one major difference that I see is when you get into the people manager role, it's no more your growth, right? So your achievements or your accomplishments. It's your team's accomplishment that defines your achievements. So you make sure that the team is you empower your team, and they succeed, you succeed, and the organization succeeds. So I'm enjoying that. There are a lot of challenges, of course, and yeah, we are learning. I'm learning along the way, and constant learning is what is keeping me going, I would say. Thanks.
Wow, what a journey, right? So, I mean, from travel to these complicated stuff, and generally, I mean, you answered it for many of those people like who feel that, okay, I don't have a technical background, how do I pursue that? And how do I go ahead with that? But I mean, you are really an inspiration in this case that you picked like networking, and now you have 14 years of experience, you're an expert there. And yep, so that's really incredible. Great to know that. Thank you.
I don't know, I'm an expert there, but I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, yes, no, you would be modest enough to tell that you are not an expert, but if you're there, now initially we survive.
Yes.
If we go beyond 3, 4 years, we thrive, right? So that's where the expertise comes. So wonderful. So glad, thanks for joining. And now let's get to the segment. So we have so far just to inform to a few. So we have some divided this interview into some segments. On every segment, we will have some questions. At some place, some points, I may ask one of you directly, or else you can pitch in. Okay, so all the questions, of course, I won't be asking all of you because probably in some questions there will be a repeat answers, right? So Uthra, since you are here, let's start with you only. So for our segment, the journey of documentation release management, I have a question. So over a period of time, how do you think has the approach to documentation release management evolved in your organization also you can say, and in general also you can say?
Okay, sure. So in one of my organization or the current organization, if you see, like this is my second stint in Gigamon. So when I initially joined, right? So I joined in 2018. And at that time, if you see, I would say that the documentation was in its infancy, where there was no established process, no formal structure in place, and the documentation was scattered across multiple guides. And the guides were actually, we didn't have an online documentation portal. So all the guides were bundled with the product. So the accessibility was also an issue. And to make it worse, what happened was the US-based documentation team was dissolved completely, and they wanted to build a team in Chennai, in India, basically from scratch. And I would say I was one of the early members of this on this journey, and we had to together as a team. We had to build a team, build the process, build the structure, build the documentation portal. Everything was a challenge. So everything had to be built from scratch. But though I say it is a challenge, there was a lot of opportunities for learning as well. So the first biggest challenge, as I said, was lack of accessibility where the PDFs were bundled with the product, right? So we launched a kind of a major initiative, which is a doc reboot project. Okay. So this project, we tried to tackle all our key issues head on, right? So we had to evaluate certain tools, and after carefully evaluating, we came across this madcap flare, and we felt that this was an ideal choice to consolidate all our content, and we used madcap central. And we use this madcap software to build our documentation portal from scratch. We did that, and which not only streamlined our content but also made it accessible to all the stakeholders, and we are able to easily update it and make sure that our customers have updated content always, access to updated content always. And then migrating the content to madcap flare and designing our website, all those things we had to do. So that completely transformed our documentation delivery angle, if you see. So another pain point we addressed was that chaotic process, right? So as I said, we didn't have any process in place where everything was sent through emails. Like there will be feature requests coming in, there will be bug requests coming in, there will be ad hoc updates coming in, all through emails, and it was maddening. So it was a constant struggle, right? So then we introduced this Jira-based process for documentation requests. So this allowed us to streamline the updates and stay aligned with development timelines. So I also had this opportunity. I have presented this entire process and how aligned are we with the engineering team as well with respect to the Jira process. I had an opportunity to present it in one of the STC conferences as well, and it's available in the YouTube for people to go through it. So we implemented documentation release process also, right? So that we wanted to be aligned, very closely tied up and aligned with engineering teams, so that we get we are involved much earlier in the cycle. So Writers, we assigned writers to different modules, and then writers are part of engineering scrums, and we are engaged earlier in the cycle, and we are unblocked in a very timely manner. And this ensures that docs are ready along with the product release and keeping everything in sync. So this journey from no process, no team, no kind of proper tool in place to now we have a very strong and well-defined release management system in place, uh, and we are continually improving it. So this journey has been very rewarding, I would say.
Wow, that's complete, like starting from scratch and now coming up to this level. That's amazing. Thank you. Shweta, you want to add something to it?
Sure. I think Uthra's kind of summarized everything. But honestly, the last 9 years, I've seen more of agile happening. So some of the processes are in place, like at least, the expectations are clear. The uh, product documentation has to go over the feature. So that's established, but it doesn't guarantee anything structured. So the kind of problems that we've faced has been like, we are in the agile. So like right now, my organization, they don't call it agile, but we have weekly releases. So what happens is, even if it's weekly releases, the requirements are in like, these are basically ideas put across by customers. So the engineering teams pick it up. And so like months or like years before that, the actual process starts. So it starts getting into Jira and things like that. But like Uthra said, the writers are not involved early. So what I've seen is like we've tried our best to get the writers involved in these processes as early as possible. So that's changed. And then internally, we've developed a lot of things so that we can, like, what do you say? We can uh, pick it up. Like Jira, the writers are added to the epics as early as possible. And the internal processes also, we've aligned the editorial processes, everything. So initially, the content used to not be edited. The writers would just, go in and deliver content which is technically accurate, but may not be there editorially very good. You'll see typos in the output and things like that. So we've come a long way, actually. So I think with the other questions, we can handle how we've
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Gayatri, I have a different question for you because you said you started right from scratch. So, can you share your journey in establishing the documentation release process from where you started and now from where how you are? So, what was it, and how can you figure out, like, name some key milestones in your journey so far?
Sure, Punit. Yeah. Yeah, it's been 4 years that I'm associated with Vitech. And when I first joined Vitech, right, we were just asked to build a user guide for one product. And there was no release, no concepts exist also then. So when I was first introduced, so I kind of was an early member into this organization as a part of technical writing team, me along with another colleague. We both were trying to juggle to understand what is the product about, and everything we have to build from scratch, and it's very new. The product is also itself from Vitech perspective is new to the market. So from gathering the requirements to building the documentation, we had I mean, the collaboration was also very minimal coming from the stakeholders. I mean, when we reach out to them, can you provide the information, we used to get the info. I mean, we have to do multiple follow-ups to get the information. However, we were able to build the documentation and publish it. Then there comes from one stakeholder, we need a release note document. So when they said the release note document, we don't know. There is no formal documentation that exists as well in the current Vitech world on the release notes. So earlier developers were actually writing the release notes directly at the ticket or user story or a feature level. So, and it is very technical. The technical jargon is also included. When we even look at it also, layman person cannot understand what the feature is all about. So we were trying to connect with multiple people, stakeholders to understand. Okay, so I was given an opportunity to come up with, okay, what do you think based on your prior experience? What should a release note document looks like? So I kind of presented. This is This is how we have to capture, I mean, new features, bugs, and improvements. So this is some of the formal document that we will have to. So when I presented to my director, right, he kind of like, I'll be very fortunate also, because the director that I'm working under also, he has given me that freedom to establish a process and always being supportive there. That's something that not every organization would have, even you have better ideas, right? So I would say that's one of the positive thing I can say, whenever I used to come up with, why don't we have such a template like this. So what how the process has been evolved is, to keep it in short, we used to run a query in Jira, export that user stories or features into an Excel document. We used to manually write a release notes in a Jira and present it to our stakeholders. So this is the process we followed for a couple of releases. When I say releases, every quarter we have one product release. So for close to 6 months we followed this. Then I had an opportunity to improvise this process. So I connected with engineering teams, how we can streamline this process directly in Jira. Meaning, tech writers go in and write the release notes in the Jira at a feature level, instead of technical teams writing it, and there is no well-defined process also. So that's where the accountability has been shifted from developers to writers. And when we were given the opportunity to write the release notes, so now we have written the release notes for all the features. Now how should we consolidate all the features into a document? So that has also, I mean, should we do it manually for each release? Because when I say that we have a monthly release, right? Sorry, 3 month release, right? So every month we ensure that we publish an incremental draft, so that our stakeholders get an early view of what's coming in as part of the release. So with an agenda of this, I work with engineering teams actively, where we generated a predefined template from Jira. All that I have to do is, when the release notes has been updated at a feature, anybody in the organization can use that query and generate a release note document. So that's how, from an Excel to a PDF document, I would say it has been a great journey as a team, as far as the organization as well. Because even though when we made the document available, also I and my team had to work so much that we had to socialize that with the teams, because not everybody in the organization feels the importance of having tech writers or the documentation team. So we need to tell them, okay, this is where the documentation exists, at least the release notes. Why don't you look at it and do share the feedback with us? Because we build the content, and if nobody's looking at it, I don't think we are growing there. So there is a constant push from our team to the stakeholders in our organization to look at our documentation and share the feedback, so that we can grow as well. What is our clients looking at it? What they actually need when we share the documentation. So, and there has been a constant change in our organization requirements also. Earlier we were working in a waterfall model. Now it's been close to a year that our organization has also started thinking, let's operate in agile environment. Meaning, earlier there was less collaboration between tech writers and the stakeholders. Earlier we are only reaching out to the product managers or product owners. Only those are the people who knows, okay, what the tech writer does. But now with this shift, we are also collaborating with developers and testers as well. Why developers? Earlier we used to write release notes only about the business design intent of the feature, what the feature does and how does it help the end user. But now with this agile shift and a lot of changes in the process also, they're asking us to capture the technical changes. So by default, as tech writers, we would not have a lot of knowledge around the technical details of how the product is getting made available on the UI, right? So we now interact with technical architects, developers, and testers also, to understand more on the technical details. What kind of data model changes are needed for this feature? So today we are also capturing that level of details in our release notes. So still, while I say that the process has been enhancing, there is a continuous learning and growth. While I say the challenges, right, about following up with the technical writers, architects remains constant, but I do see there is a support coming from the stakeholders as well. When we start socializing about these things, right, this is available, why don't you look at it? They're excited to look at the documentation and share feedback as well. So yeah.
That's a great point, actually. So, I mean, that's very close to one point which I read a few days before. Like in software documentation, that applies a lot. If your content is not searchable, consider it non-existent. So, searchable word can be replaced here with, accessible to the. So we have to make sure that they are reading it. Otherwise, no use of having such document. And that's where there is no scope of improvement also. We don't know
Correct.
what's happening. So, yep, that's great point. Thank you. So I'll go back again to Shweta here. So just to continue with this question, another question. Shweta, so what role does cross-functional collaboration play in your doc release process? And how has it changed over the time? I understand in your organization, there were multiple writers, multiple projects, so probably you may be able to throw some light on it.
Sure. I think we've come a long way. I think the industry by itself is evolving because initially, when I joined as a technical writer, it was very difficult to even go and talk to a project manager or a product manager. They would look down on technical writers because they think that we're not very technical like them, and that documentation can be written by anybody. That was the trend. But touchwood, I've seen a huge change over the years. I think thanks to all the documentation managers and all the technical writers who've worked towards, showing them the importance of documentation and showing them how it's not easy to deliver simple documentation, right? So, r- like from when I joined, I used to go behind project managers. So here I also write. So it's not just that I manage a team. All the managers are given some components to handle just to keep it real because I think that's needed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the empathy for the team. I do write, so I do, go behind project managers. Even though we say agile, even though I say we're marked early, sometimes we don't get the information on time. So I think it's just constant nudges. I know it might borderline on nagging, but there shouldn't be any ego because it's people we're dealing with. Like how you mentioned before this session that soft skills are important. I think it's very important for a technical writer. It's not just for managers. I think every writer should know how to communicate clearly, verbally or, written. What is here should come out because most of the time when I review documents, when I ask the person, okay, what did you intend, they'll say something, then I say, why don't you type that, so sometimes we don't type or say what's here. So I think as a manager or a technical writer, you have to constantly work with the product managers. Like you have to reach out to them. It's okay. There's no ego. Sometimes we get shunned. There have been like very. There are some rude people also. So it's very difficult to deal with such people. But what I've noticed with people is they eventually change. Even the toughest of project managers, if we deliver our product or documentation very well, they kind of soften up and they change. But at least in Genesys, what I've noticed is there's a lot of respect for technical writers. The project managers themselves have started reaching out to us. Like, initially, I used to go and ask them, okay, I am supposed to work on this ticket. Do we have doc impact for this ticket? So I used to go nudge. But now, as soon as they see something from my product area, they map my name easily. So it's come to that. I think it's a journey together. And I think it's there in every team. It's not just cross-functional. Even with within our teams, we have to like work on a lot of things. So yeah, I think soft skills is the way.
Yeah, well said. And all with all these examples, soft skill, then of course core skills. I think it all boils down to finally one point. If we show our ability,
Ability, yes.
right, where they can trust us with the information and they have the confidence in us, just by holding the flag, I'm a technical writer and you should value us, that's not going to help, right? So somewhere they need to trust us also. And see I mean, like three of you have also mentioned so far, and we keep on listening. What is product documentation in general? Basically, we are serving the customers directly. A company dies to gain the trust of customers. We have the best opportunity to get that. If we can showcase that, okay, we are partners, we are not disturbing your work, I think generally it's all sorted. Great, thank you. So, by the way, when we are talking about challenges, so Uthra, I have a question for you. So now let's say we are working and we on the projects, and we often keep hearing about those last minute changes, right? So how do you handle last minute changes or product updates? that impact documentation. So it's like a process, tools. How does it go?
Sure, Punit. So, yeah, as you said, last minute changes are inevitable, right? So it keeps coming in. So, one thing that we clearly made, like as we evolved in our release management, we have certain phase exit criteria, right? So the features don't come up last minute. So features are top priority, and it is defined as part of our phase exit criteria. So that is there, and we do use Jira, the doc impact label, and things like that. So there are certain product related tickets, like it could be bug fixes that are coming in, or some ad hoc product updates that the team does that requires documentation updates, right? So what happens to those? So we try to categorize that as just in terms of priority. We try to categorize them as must have and nice to have. So the engineering team must clearly give us that whether it's a must have fix or a nice to have fix. So if it is a must have fix for that release to go, then what we do is we try to collaborate with them in the sense we try to co-author the content. Yeah. So they have to give us a kind of an implementation handoff kind of a thing where they give us the content. So you want this content, it is coming late in the release, but still you want to make it. So then give us the content, and then we will fine tune it. We will make it edited and make sure that it adheres to the style, the tone, and other things, and then we put it in. You can't expect us to understand the update, come up with the content. That we don't have time for that. So co-authoring is one thing that we've been practicing, and that's been working well. And for all those nice to have, what we do is we take it up as post release updates. Like we have this timeline set with all the stakeholders, especially the product management and the engineering teams, right? So we have this 3 weeks post release. So all these nice to have bucket that comes in, we work on that, and we republish the guides 3 weeks after the release is there. So that's how we try to balance the last minute changes that comes in.
Great. Thank you. And so the same question, not in detail, but just a short question to both of you, Gayatri and Shweta. These last minute changes, because I have heard from many teams that, we will work on +1 model, +1, +2, like not in this sprint or release, but we will ask for. So like, especially with Gayatri, like the journey that you have had there, I'm sure there must be some cases of last minute, not some, probably more. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, like Uthra mentioned, right? More or less, the post-release updates we follow. But the other good part that she mentioned, I guess I will start adopting it to categorize the content by must-have and nice-to-have. Maybe I can propose this idea. But as of today, what we are following is, for example, next Friday is the actual production release is going as a software, right? So 2 weeks prior only, we send out the communication to the our stakeholders, meaning the product managers who actually know what has to be included as part of the documentation, if there are any last minute changes. So when we send out an email saying that we have this documentation publication date where we'll have all the final draft published, just in case any features that has to be included as part of these drafts, let us know. If anything that comes in the last minute, we will not be able to achieve it for this date, but we will handle it post release. So that's how we communicate them before, because the accountability is not just lying with tech writers, but also with the stakeholders there, the product owners. Meaning, if tomorrow when we publish the drafts, if you don't see any particular content related to any new feature that has been published, if the information is not shared to us timely, it will not make it to the actual documentation publication we are doing. So we try to create that behavioral change from the stakeholders as well, so that they also think that this is something important, that we have to share this information. Let us assume most of the times we tend to get that. I mean, they do receive, we do receive the information, we try to make it up for the release, we have that window. What if we publish and later we receive the inputs? So just like Uthra mentioned, right, we have like 2 weeks post-release updates, we try to make those updates accordingly and republish our drafts. So, and we also take care of the labeling, meaning we have our all the documentation information updated. When is the final draft published? After post-release, what are the updates made to it? And we would also include the date stamps there. So that's how we are following today.
Wonderful. That's good to know. Because especially, with smaller companies where they're a very small team and starting from scratch, setting up processes and making people believe that, okay, yeah, this will work, that's probably the toughest challenge.
Yes.
It happens, but yeah, it takes time. So, Gayatri, I'll move to you, but with a different question. Sorry, Gayatri was not. So for Shweta, this question. So, in your experience, did it ever go so wrong that the documentation release didn't go as planned?
Yeah, it's
Shweta.
happened. Ideally, it
So,
shouldn't happen, but it's happened. Okay, there have been many instances, but I'm going to talk about what happened in the current organization. So, we were all like freshly hired, like for our roles, and we had just joined the organization, and uh, there was this junior team member who was also mapped to a project. A junior team member who didn't call himself a junior came with a lot of experience actually. So what happened was we were just uh, there was no proper training. We were just given an onboarding page, and we were asked to read through instructions and understand the release processes. Some of us just picked it up very, very well because we worked in multiple organizations, so we know how it works, right? Wherever we're thrown, we'll just pick it up. So what happened was here the writers are directly mapped to the product teams. Although like we it's not like a base team, it's not a vertical horizontal thing. It's a very small team, but you can directly reach out to your project managers or product managers for your component. The components are all like interlinked, but you have your own components to deal with so that the other writers don't mess up with your documentation. You can just have your own set of documentation. So this person was unfortunately given an area which has like multiple updates every week. So we have weekly releases. So every right now it's changed to Monday. So every Wednesday we used to have our content pushed to production. And the previous what happens is like the previous Thursday there would be a release review for your feature. And then so there's a lot of hiding text, unhiding text. So here we don't have a major version control system because the content is very dynamic. Like how Uthra said, like they have a separate process for bug fixes. We push everything into production ASAP if it's a very minor fix. So what happened was in this person's case there were like he had like 4 epics going out every week. um, Very unfortunate, he didn't know how to manage between the release review time to, the editorial time and the um, uh, production push. So I wouldn't say that it's like his failure. I would say it's a system failure because nobody trained him. Nobody was, I was his manager, in fact. Because he sounded very confident, even I didn't like micromanage or notice that things were going wrong. But what happened was like at least 2 releases he failed. He didn't push the content into production on time. Like he didn't keep it ready for the production push. Then it got escalated. It was messy. But we've come a long way. From that example, we realized that we have to get involved in the processes for the writers. We have to enable them. We have to help them. And there was a lot of like here. What happens is the documentation doesn't go, the feature doesn't go. So that's the thing. So the product managers also understood that the features are getting held up. So it was a major escalation. We went in, and when we cleaned it up, we ensured that we uh, actually delivered everything like in a week or two. It was not a major miss. It was a week or two, which is a major for a customer. Particular customer might be looking for that feature, but we managed it, and we've come a long way from that. We've tried like after that, like, for 3 years we haven't had such mishaps. So
interesting. So, on that point, like you said, documentation doesn't go and then release won't happen. technically, even in my work experience and whatever I hear generally, that's how the system is. But I'm surprised, and probably if you all are aware, then good, but you will be surprised to know that there are some big organizations, not a small one or a startup, corporates whom we call. I am surprised to hear in 2024 they are working on a model where they can push the dock tickets at will. Release is happening, product is going, and for that the product managers or the developers will just create some workaround, and some tickets will go to the next release. So document is not available. And I must be, I will be honest to admit I was shocked that, I mean, how can you do that? And that too happening from the documentation team. So yeah, different people, I don't know how they can deal with that. But yep, great learnings. Thank you so much. So, okay, we have a few minutes left. So, Uthra, I will move on to one question about measuring success and continuous improvement to you. How do you measure the success of a documentation release, both in terms of process efficiency and end user satisfaction?
Sure, Punit. So, first, let me go into the process efficiency, right? So we do a kind of, we hold a retrospective meeting, right? So we first have this retrospective meeting within TechPub's team, and then we gather some points, and then we also have all the managers or heads of the department get into this retrospective meeting. And we discuss on what went well, what needs to be stopped, and what we need to start, or what we can continue, like that. So we discuss a lot, and we also discuss about the cross-functional dependencies also. There are certain dependencies and how best we can put in a process for that, so that each of us are unblocked at an early stage itself. So all these things we discuss, and at the end of the meeting what we do is we also identify certain action items, and in terms of prioritizing, so there will be about 20 plus items that comes up in the meeting, but then we can't implement everything in the next release, right? So we vote. All participants will be given a chance to vote which is important, and based on the voting, there are about 3 to 4 action items that are prioritized and that are implemented in the next release cycle. So that way we try to make sure that the process is improved release over release, and we refine it. And we also make sure that it's process, that the process is light, right? So it shouldn't be an overhead for the teams to work who are working on it. So that's how we refine the process. But when it comes to the end user satisfaction, right? So I'm not sure if it happens every release we get this kind of a feedback or something, but then I can certainly share one example that happened in my earlier organization, where what happened was, we generally get this customer reported defects. Like, we do have internally found defects that are there, but then the customer reported defects that comes from the field, right? So we noticed over a period of time that there were no customer reported defects at all for our documentation. So does it mean that our documentation is so good? So that is not the case, right? So, and then we also use certain analytics tools, right? So to see the number of views that we get in our documentation pages, and we saw that the views were really flat. But one problem was, like, we were not able to differentiate whether it's a internal people viewing the site versus the external people viewing the site. That kind of differentiation we were not able to get from that tool. So we saw that view was really flat, and or it was decreasing, and no documentation defects filed at all. So that was a concerning factor for us. So then what we did was we partnered with the partner success team. So our products were deployed in the customer environment through partners, because it was a very complex product. So we collaborated with our partner success teams, and then we wanted to understand what is happening. why I mean, are they really looking at into our documentation or not? And that's when we found that um, the customers or the partners don't even go to our documentation site. That was a very pathetic situation, because they found that we were thinking that we are giving so much of information in the document. It is all that was our thought process when we were giving it, right? So then we found that it was too complex for them to understand, and it was overwhelming for them. So what we thought was, let's get into the partners call. So they have these interlock meetings with tier 1 partners. So we made sure that we attended one of those interlocks with all those tier 1 partners. And then we said, these are all, we actually presented our doc portal to them. This is how the documentation looks like. And we gathered the pain points. And that's when we came to know that they are overwhelmed. So not all, like we are catering to all the complex deployments, but then when it comes to the customers, it's majority are very simple deployments, and they don't want to, and they get overwhelmed to see so much of information. And then we came to know that their pain points are these, and we need to further simplify the documentation. And then we also created certain surveys, like for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 partners. So we gave those surveys to them, and then we gathered those inputs, and then we tried to refine our documentation. And they wanted some engaging content coming in rather than full of verbose documentation and things like that. So then we tried to refine it, and after 6 months, right? So we after implementing, after 6 months, we started seeing those CRDs coming in, the customer reported defects coming in, and we saw a real good trend, the increase in the number of views, a nice trend coming in. So that's one thing that I wanted to share.
Wonderful. And I'm smiling because that reminds me about one of those interesting cases I had faced as a manager in one of the organization. We were working hard, like you said, okay, this document, this much information. We used to have so much we used to ask for so much input that product managers and developers will say, why do you need so much information? And we were very happy with our document. We were. One fine day, in a management meeting, I'm being told we are receiving a lot of dog bugs. There are documents not available. It's not proper. Okay, can I see those tickets? So then I will discuss. I got those doc tickets. Then I said, doc tickets are there, but there is no reference to which link they have, accessed, or to which PDF file. Then I further digged in and I asked. Then I got a link. I said, but this is not our link. This is then I'm working there for some time now, and still then I'm told that there is a separate team which creates its own workarounds and shares, and they never share our documentation link. Like,
this was
what
exactly the thing that happened when I said, right? So these partner success teams creates their own document, and they give it to the partners and customers. So no one comes to documentation site.
And we were very happy. Oh, wow. We are doing a great job.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's explains a lot. So, okay, we will have just two more questions, and those we will try to have short answers there. So, first of all, Gayatri, from your experience especially, you may be able to help here. How can documentation managers advocate for the resources and support needed for effective release management? Because I understand you said you started from scratch, but now even if you ask for one team member or two team members, what exactly goes on there?
From a resource management perspective, right, we kind of, what do you say, from a release perspective, even now, we are shortage of resources. I know for different reasons, since we are growing, even the organization is growing and coming up with a lot of products, the need for the documentation is also increasing in our organization, which is very good sign. But talking about the resource management, right, we don't have so many people with us, but we will have to evolve and create the documentation. Like what do you say, they are requesting for. So what I kind of do is do an analysis, quick analysis of what is being committed and what is that we are delivering and what's being carried forwarded to the next release. And definitely when there is a shortage of resources, right? Although I would say I've been since I've been promoted from the same team from a senior technical writer to manager, so I know at a ground level what kind of challenges are we facing as a writers here. It could be a tools, it could be for a better release. I mean documentation release also we need effective tools and processes there. Even there the challenges come in as well. The versioning, we never had a version control system in our organization, so we had to come up with a what do you say POC. Okay, this is one of the version control systems that we can adopt, which can ease our release documentation process. Because without any of this, when we have multiple documentation to be published or released, so it becomes a great what do you say challenge there. So bringing up more tools there. Yes, resources are important, but at the same time, what I feel is with the what I wanted to see is with the existing people, right, that I have in my team. Can I have more effective tools in there so that the manual effort that each writer would put in to generate that process, can tool fix that issue for me? I'm not saying that I'm going to replace people with tools, no, but with given better tools and better processes in place, can the existing people generate the better results there? So this is how I'm doing the analysis right now. How we can, I mean, like we are growing, right? Like our team is also growing right now with the more documentation requests coming in. So I kind of prioritize and help my team. Okay, which one we should prioritize, and how can we do a better planning so that we can deliver the documentation that we plan for the release. So yeah.
Wonderful. So if I can summarize it, like where brain is required, higher resources, where it can be like, automation possible, just
Correct.
get the tools,
Correct.
right? Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a nice perspective, actually. Yeah, wonderful. So great. So, and how about you, Shweta, overall? How, like, in terms of resources and all, how's it there?
We always have a shortage, right? I mean, we can we can never have enough technical writers. So, and
Yeah.
some of the things are not under our control. I mean, like when there's a hiring freeze, you cannot do much. But I think metrics kind of helps here. We show them reliable metrics saying that actually it takes so much time to get something done, and like if you're asking for a new person, then you have to show enough work, tell them this is how much it's going to take. And of course we have like our own backlog, and just apart from these epic stuff that's going out, we have a lot of enhancements, doc enhancement tickets that never get looked at. So it's about showing the management that there's so much work, and we can hire more people. That's one thing. And then Gayatri said, like for everything we don't need people. Like you also summed it up very well. Wherever you need, you know, a brain to be thinking, then you hire more people. For other things, I think better tools would work. That's something that I'm like fighting for versioning, because we are on we have like a huge set of documentation. Thankfully, there are no books that we're publishing. It's not like PDFs or things like that. It's only we don't have manuals. It's just online help, and it's all there in WP Engine. It's a WordPress based site. Uh, I'm really sorry, my cat is.
She's also interested.
Yeah, she's interested in documentation, I guess. So, so we fight as a team. We're asking the management for a proper version control, because internally versions are happening. Like you have limited versions. We have like plugins that help us control, the versions and things like that. But a lot of things happen manually. So I've always advocated for the fact that the writer shouldn't be spending a lot of time on processes or workarounds and tools. They'd rather be writing. That's where even data or things like that help, right? You just open the document, you just type. You're not worried about formatting a table, or adding header, footer. You're not worried about all those. So I think as a manager, I've always been advocating for the right kind of tools, for more resources. Sometimes we get, sometimes we don't, but yeah, it's a constant
Yeah, yeah,
process, I
part and
guess.
parcel of the
Yeah,
game,
I think so.
basically.
Yeah.
And those like struggling with formatting and all, I think we have seen enough, what do you call, questions, LinkedIn posts that many writers, experienced writers say that, with some tools, how they spend 60% time on formatting and hardly 10% time on writing.
That
So
can be
yeah,
terrible. Yeah.
that is right. Okay, so now to conclude, I have one question for you all, and there maybe just 1 point and 2 points. So that will be the takeaway for everyone. So if you have to give advice based on your experiences, what advice would you give to those looking to build or optimize a documentation release process from scratch? So maybe just 1 point each. Uh, okay, so Shweta, you can start. You are here, right?
Yeah, I would say keep it very realistic, and we have to be aligned with the product teams. So I think we don't work independently, right? So keep it as realistic and as simple as as possible. Don't have multiple internal processes. Like if you have an editorial cycle, don't keep it like verification round, and try to use tools like acrolinks or something that will help the eliminate typos and things like that. So I think keep the internal processes as simple as possible. That would be my advice. And then get enough tools if you can to simplify things for the writers.
That's a great tip. Thank you. Gayatri, what would you say? 1 point?
Yeah, I agree with what Shweta said because that's the current challenge that we have. I mean, I'm in the process of bringing in the tools that, like you mentioned, right, where writer has to focus only on the writing because already we get the complex information from our stakeholders. So we should be focusing on writing a better content there rather than the tools. Tools has to take care of the formatting, generating output. It should be a one click away for us. So adopting the right tools and utilizing it at the maximum, and wherever the automation can be implemented even for the writers, right? So I'll answer it with an example. In my current process, when I evaluate a doc ticket is needed for any of the release feature that I'm working, earlier I used to manually go through it and I manually create a ticket, but I brought in a process here. When I identified a feature that a doc impact is needed, I just select an option as yes or no. If I select it as yes, a doc ticket gets created by default. So the predefined information about the features is populated on the documentation. So doc writer will just estimate how much time it would take for that task to be completed and get the work done. So these are some of the things that we will have to identify and see where the manual work can be reduced. At the same time, our energies are put in on the high quality of the content that we have to deliver.
Wonderful. So we have simplified process,
Correct.
good tools.
Yes.
Thank you. How about you, Uthra?
I think both Shweta and Gayatri have summed it up very well. So, yeah, automate things. So, have certain scripts that can run. So, for broken links and all, we do use some Python scripts where it generates reports on a daily basis. So, that way it becomes easier. So, automate wherever possible and then have your allies, right? So, we are working with cross functional teams, and it's very important that you have your allies there. And wherever possible, smart work is also important. As I said, this co-authoring is really, really helpful, where we engage with them and have allies would definitely be a good option. And then implement AI, right? So AI is one thing that is the way forward, I would say. Like we are trying to implement Chat GPT with Madcap, where it's going to it's definitely there are a lot of use cases, and it we can implement certain tools. I mean, not tools, meaning the voice and tone and other things. The first draft itself can be given by the AI, and you will spend time to refine it, to present it in a different way, and those are the things where you can bring your value add. So those are certain things that we are trying to achieve. Yes.
Great. Yep. So I think, yeah, so people think about different other things, but I think the 3 points you mentioned, those form the key. Rest, of course, we are writers, whether we are managers or not, but we are writers also overall, and we are managing the team of writers. So base rules remain the same, but yeah, think about these points, and certainly it's going to help. It has helped many companies, even in your companies also, you have simplified the processes. So the future is not so bleak if people follow some nice processes. So thank you so much, Uthra, Gayatri, and Shweta. And it was really nice talking to you. And before closing, we will just take a few questions that we have, and then we will wind up. Okay. So Shruti has mentioned, and ideally, a final release document should have how many amendments mentioned at starting to get final released version of particular document. Anybody would like to take this? How many amendments would be recommended before the final released version?
I can answer from my experience. I mean,
Yeah.
so in my organization, like it's 3 month cycle, right? So we do like 2 incremental drafts and the final release. And the first incremental draft, we ensure that 90% of our features that are going to be part of the release are included there. The remaining 10%, it could be the amendments to the existing release note that we have drafted or the last minute features that we get. So this is what we are following before the final drafts that we publish.
That's nice. I hope, Shruti, that answers your question. Okay, we have one more question from Bala Subramanian. If there is a shortage in workforce and enough automations are already in place, if the management is not agreeing to hire to combat the demand, is it advisable to quit and look for work elsewhere? What would be the best common ground to deal with such situations? Yep.
I can go
Uthra.
for that.
Yeah.
So definitely for all these things, you shouldn't quit because this is everywhere. So you can't keep jumping for this, right? So one thing is, as Swetha rightly pointed, metrics would definitely play a vital role there. And this is one thing that we try to implement in my earlier organization also, where we try to implement the sizing metrics and sizing your work. And then basically we have this metrics, the process in place where we size our work, what is in hand and what are in pipeline, building your pipeline, building your backlog and sizing your backlog with the number of resources you currently have and say that this is the effort that is required, this is what we have. So either give me a resource or you prioritize things for me. So you work with your product management team and say that this is my capacity and this is the workload. And either you give resource or you prioritize it and say this can be done in this quarter and these are the things that can be pushed to the other quarter. Like that is the negotiation that we can do. And for us to do that negotiation, the sizing metrics kind of not really sizing, but then some kind of metrics, you need data to negotiate. So that's one thing that we can try to do.
Perfectly said, Uthra. I completely agree. In fact, the latter also can work. They might actually negotiate. I mean, they might even prioritize and say, don't do this. That's happened to me once. They say, okay, leave out that, just do this. That's it. When I asked for another writer, they said that, this can go later. So that can happen as well. Well said.
Yeah. I mean, so before talking, we should have that kind of data. We can't simply say yes or no, and of course, quitting, at least for that, is not a recommended option. And I hope, Bala, that helps you. Okay, so with this, we will conclude the discussion. Thank you so much, Swetha, Uthra, and Gayathri, for all the insights. This was really nice talking to you and a lot of insights. And I'm sure when people will listen to this, they will be really, finding some way out. And I love the way, you guys focused more on the simplified approach, basics, because while interacting, what we hear is more people talking about bigger things more. Oh, AI is going to kill us. No, AI is your friend. Come on. Okay. So, and things like that. We don't have this, we don't have that. Okay, focus on basics. At least that's in our control. So, thank you so much for all your insights. And with this, we conclude the session.
Thanks, Punit. Thanks all.
Thank you so much. And good
Thank
meeting you,
you.
Uthra. Uthra and I worked together in Cognizant, actually.
Same
Great.
here, Swetha. After a long time, yes.
Long time, yeah.
And thanks for this opportunity, Punit.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Punit. Thanks.
And thanks to
Thank
the
you.
team, right? So for making this more engaging. Thank you so much.
It was really very informative. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.